You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the podcast, or welcome to the podcast. I'm really not sure why I'm so inclined to say welcome back. I don't know if you've been here before, but if you have, I appreciate you very much. And if you're new, I appreciate you as well. Thank you for clicking on this and deciding to make it part of your day. Today I'm talking to Andy and Michael from a company called Mojotone. If you've never heard of Mojotone, I'm quite surprised you found this podcast, because Mojotone has been basically part of the guitar internet since the guitar internet became a thing that people were looking at on the World Wide Web. I couldn't possibly have sounded like more of a senior citizen there, but that's not the point. The point is Mojotone has been around for a long time, helping people get amp kits, parts, pickups, hardware, knobs, tubes, pickguards. I mean, I don't even know. It'd probably be a shorter list to say what they haven't sold or manufactured at some point. Needless to say, they are a crucial part of the guitar ecosystem here in the States, and they are currently celebrating 25 years in business. I mean, my hat's off to you. We just celebrated 11, and I thought that was quite an accomplishment. But 25 years doing guitar stuff on the interwebs for enthusiasts and doing it really, really well. That's what Mojotone's all about. And I could keep blabbering and just annoying you, or we could hear it straight from the horse's mouth. So let's get into this episode with Andy and Michael from Mojotone. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland. With me today, I have the Mojotone fellas, Andy Turner and Michael McWhorter. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Blake. Thanks for having us.
Hey, yes. This is really cool. You guys are like, how do I describe Mojotone? You guys have been around for so long, and you've been able to just fill all these niches that I feel like a lot of people didn't know needed filled, but obviously very much did, because you guys have been very successful and pretty much ubiquitous. You know, has become a thing where it's like, I don't know, just hit up Mojotone. They probably have it, you know, type of thing in certain circles. So, but with that in mind, I don't know the story at all. So let's start from way back. How did you guys get into all this and grow it into the machine that it is today? I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, we've got a pretty crazy story.
Well, I mean, if you really want to go way back, there's a story before we were even involved.
Let's do it.
There was a Mojotone for about 7 years before we owned it, and it was run by a fellow named Nate Kramer, and he had worked for Magic Parts, and what he noticed was that there were a lot of people that needed cosmetic parts for vintage amplifiers, and nobody was really supplying them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he broke away and started selling some of those cosmetic parts, and that was the birth of Mojotone. And I think he did a lot of things that were really good for the Mojotone brand. He might not have always been furthering the business itself so well, but he really, a lot of the stuff he did, I think I'm still proud of how he handled. So,
But everything he did, they were a replacement parts for vintage amps was his niche, and that was pretty much it. So, pre 1980 amp parts was all he did. So, I'll tell a little bit of your story. So, Andy owned a electronic repair shop in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He was kind of in the basement of a music store in Winston-Salem. And I went to college in Winston-Salem and got to know Andy just from bringing him amps to repair, and thought what he did was pretty cool. And so I convinced him to give me a job working kind of underneath him, learning that trade. And we fixed everything from guitar amps, of course, keyboards, PA equipment, whatever anybody wanted to bring in. Go ahead.
Well, and Michael was on it too. Like he didn't really have any background in taking anything apart, and I had been repairing stuff for a couple of years, and he just jumped into it, and anything that needed to be done, he was fearless. So that worked out really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, my angle was less cosmetics, less corners and handles and things like that, and more electronics. So Mojo wasn't really as on my radar as some of the other guys like New Sensor and Magic Parts for parts and groove tubes. I mean, groove tubes were kind of the only game in town at one point for vacuum tubes.
I remember that. Yeah, I was pretty young, but I remember that time.
And then suddenly there were Svetlanas and Sovtechs, and you could get your own tubes and match them up yourself and potentially save a bunch of money and still do fairly well. But there was a point in time when if you tried to do that, you would just end up with a pile of garbage.
Right. Yes.
But
the dark days.
To continue on with the story, so Andy eventually moved out of the repair shop. I played in a band all the way through college, and then got out of college and did the band thing full time for about 4 years. Meanwhile, Andy left the music store and started a repair shop in downtown Winston-Salem. And we would, maybe every couple of years run into each other and say, hey. And Andy had gotten into, this was late 90s, so right when eBay had started. Andy got into buying up surplus and had a good eBay business. They would buy a pallet of speakers or transformers, or would kind of find these deals.
And one of the places where the surplus started to come from was Mojotone, because Nate was having some problems, and so he ended up with a bunch of surplus, and that ended up being a good way for. So I was at some point I was driving out to California and picking up loads of surplus from Mojotone and bringing them back and selling them off.
But some of the surplus stuff, you'll remember, remember the ADA MP1?
Oh, yeah.
So somehow Mojo Musical Supply in Petaluma ended up with all the ADA stuff when they went out of business, which then Andy ended up with all the, how many ADA or MP1 rack units did you have?
Beyond the MP1 stuff, there were 100 of these Rocket 112 fairly bare bones tube amplifiers. It was 112X7, one EL84. This may sound familiar to some people. And 12-inch guitars, 12-inch. They were 12-inch, mostly. Were they Celestians or were they? No, it was an Eminence 12-inch. That's actually where Nate came into it. Was that's why he had the surplus. He had been providing the 12-inch speaker for it. Anyway, I ended up with 100 of them. So I had a bedroom after I brought all this surplus back that was entirely full of guitar amplifiers stacked floor to ceiling that I was finishing off and selling off in order to get rid of the surplus. So meanwhile, I guess through all of that stuff, Nate ends up having to go bankrupt. Andy worked out a deal just to do an asset purchase and buy all of the inventory. And meanwhile, I ran into him about the time that I think he was about to head out to California. And I'd quit the band and was on my way to med school. And I had about 6 months. I'd applied to med schools and had about 6 months where I was going to hear back from anything. And ran into Andy, and he was a little bit frantic of I'm moving all this stuff back from California.
we got to find a place to put it. Can you help me out? And so I jumped in with him, and he went out, and I think we shipped half of the stuff back in a train car, and then the other half, Andy rented the biggest Penske truck he could rent and drove it back from California. And we found an old RJR tobacco warehouse in downtown Winston-Salem and moved everything back into this warehouse. And with the original, the plan, I think, was to surplus it all out and, run through it and be done with it. And I was going to go to med school. And we moved everything in and started kind of picking through it, kind of cataloging it, inventory and stuff, trying to figure out what it was and where it was.
And the big turning point was we turned the 800 number on.
Yeah, we found an old box of catalogs that the old Mojo had with an 800 number across the top. And, of course, this is in 2000, so pre-e-commerce.
Sure.
So we're like, we should turn on the 800 number. And also at the time, Mojo was mainly a wholesaler, so it just sold to music stores and repair shops and manufacturers. So we ended up turning on the 800 number, and Andy still had his repair shop at the time. So we would take orders during the day, and then we would go eat dinner and then go down to the warehouse, which was about a mile away from the repair shop, and we would pack up the day's orders, leave them on a pallet for the UPS guy who had a key to the warehouse, and he would come pick up everything the next day. And we did that for the first 3 or 4 months. And unfortunately, Nate owed about $1 million to all the vendors. So as we called to replenish inventory in grill cloth companies, Tolex, speakers, all the electronic stuff, there were no vendors. We were COD with everybody for probably the first 2 years because nobody trusted the name Mojotone.
Sure. Yeah.
But it ended up, fast forward 6 months later, the business was kind of rolling. We were having a blast. I got waitlisted for all 3 med schools that I had applied to. So I decided at that point to partner up with Andy, Bag Med School. We hired maybe a warehouse guy first to help us pull and pack orders, and then we hired an old furniture builder from High Point, North Carolina, which is a big furniture capital. And he was a vintage guitar nut, and so he started building guitar amp cabinets. And it would take him about 30 days to build a cabinet. He did great work with chain smoke the whole way through it. And so we started doing cabinets. The old Mojo did some cabinets. They did a lot of replacement cabinet parts, so baffles and back panels. We had kind of a good luck thing hit where right when we kind of took over Mojo, old Mojo had done a deal with Fender to supply cabinet parts. Mm-hmm. For Fender amps.
Well, and transformers.
But Fender had a Frontline magazine. I don't know if you remember that. It would come out every couple months.
I've seen it knocking around, yeah.
And there was one issue that came out in early 2000, and the Mojo 800 phone number was the only thing in that magazine. So Mojo had an ad in the Frontline with mostly just the 800 number in that ad.
It was the only phone number in the catalog.
Okay.
So anybody who's looking through this Fender catalog, without thinking about what the number is, they see a phone number and they're like, well, I'm going to call Fender about whatever, and they get up. So it was huge.
Yeah, I led a bunch of
and it explained why when we turned the 800 number on, we were getting a flood of phone calls and so many phone calls about Fender stuff. So we took care of those folks, and
worked out for us.
That definitely helped.
Was that kind of like we're not Fender, but guess what? type of thing?
Yeah, we had that switch.
That's nice.
Yeah, and there were tons of people too that were just thankful that Mojo was continuing to do anything. The first phone call that I got was when I was still cleaning up the warehouse, and it was
Billy.
It was Billy Gibbons.
Oh, nice.
And he was just calling because he was worried about the stuff not being available anymore. Mm-hmm. So now, granted, he would have been fine without it, but he was worried, and that was exciting. So
yeah, and that's been a really cool relationship that we've had for 25 years, where we've done pretty much all the stage setups, all the cabinets for every ZZ Top tour. And Billy's an awesome character and always has really really cool ideas for what he wants his stage to look like.
Mm-hmm.
We've done, TV screens and 412 cabinets. We did a whole big stack of 412s that looked like they were all falling over. We've done, one time he wanted everything covered in Louis Vuitton Tolex.
Yeah.
We had to find that stuff. One time he wanted, there's I think it's the Beverly Hills Hotel, has some kind of wallpaper that's like banana leaves, and he wanted that pattern on all of his amps.
Okay.
On stage. So we found a car wrapping. We had the graphic printed on basically car wrapping vinyl, and wrapped all of these cabinets in that material. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. Anyway, but back to the story. So we spent the first couple of years, trying to get our inventory straight and figuring out what we, who we wanted to be. And both Andy and I are fairly ADD, so anything that we could do, we did do, which is doesn't always make good business sense.
It was never like we didn't have enough work, but it certainly has not been the best business plan.
So if we could build it or figure out how to build something or make something, we would do it and throw it in the catalog. But after a few years, we had a relationship with Gibson, and Gibson, they had ended up with the Trace Elliott trademark. And they were making some of their Goldtone amps in the UK. By Straight Edge was the name of the manufacturing company in the UK that made all the Trace Elliott stuff and was making all the Goldtone stuff. Gibson wanted to move all their manufacturing back to the US, and we kind of had a connection through really a repair guy who worked at Gibson, and so we ended up getting all that manufacturing. And so we started making the Trace Elliott acoustic amps and the Goldtone series amps, which was kind of our first jump into OEM manufacturing.
I remember those. I secretly always wanted a Gibson Goldtone just because I thought they were really cool looking.
Yeah, cool looking amps. They sounded great, but oh my gosh, so heavy.
So heavy. That's okay. I don't gig. Look back here. This is ridiculous. It's all heavy. That's a 215 cabinet you're looking at back there. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just move it once. So it's okay.
There you go.
Well, I think an interesting piece of the development of the products that we offered was the kits, because I think now people take it for granted that there's just a million tube amp kits, but at one point in time, there weren't any tube amp kits other than, way before us when it was Heathkit. And so we would get calls from people who wanted every part that was in a particular amp. And I would put that together, or Michael would put that, we'd put it together, mm-hmm. and we would send it out, and invariably there would be some discrepancy of, well, this kit should have had, or this assemblage of components, which is supposed to represent this amplifier, is missing this one part that obviously should have been in it. It's like, well, that depends on your interpretation of what the amp is. And so eventually what we decided to do was, we're going to have to make a bill of materials for each one of these amps and offer them as, and build them out and offer them as, we have built this, it makes an amplifier. This is what you're getting, and the initial offerings of that were just to keep people from having to do too much work to get to a Tweed Deluxe or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so when we offered it, it didn't come with like, this is how you put it together. And so we left it to our customers, a lot of whom were reselling stuff, to put together a description of how you would assemble the kit. And we were just the bare bones and trying to get as many kits out the door as possible.
I remember being really apprehensive about getting into it. We were worried about liability. Like, oh my God, what if we give somebody directions and they put this together and burn down their house or electrocute themselves? Mm-hmm. I don't know why we were so concerned about that.
No, we just don't care.
Now you're like, yeah, it's on you, buddy. Yeah, good luck.
But it's definitely changed a lot. Obviously, everybody, there's lots of availability of different kits. We've supplied kits, to larger suppliers who then have put their own twist on things. You don't really sell a kit anymore without some sort of instructions. The whole bar has just been raised over the course of time. But I think it's interesting to sort of look back and remember it just came from people wanting the parts. It's not people weren't asking for kits. In fact, when we offered this to the tube amp doctor at one point in time, and they were like, "Why would anyone want to buy a kit of an amplifier?" And I was like, "Well, I think you'll be surprised that if you offer it, people." And it wasn't 2 years before they were like putting their own spin on things.
I think it's part of their business. Yeah, it's been neat to see how many businesses, how many amp companies have started from a guy buying an amp kit and then buying 5 at a time and then buying 10 at a time and putting his logo on it. And,
a big success story of ours, and who has called us out before as being the genesis of his work, was the Paul Reed Smith designer,
Doug.
What's Doug's last name?
Doug. Awesome Doug.
I know who you're talking about, and I also can't think of the last name. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah, sorry, Doug, because we love you. But.
Yeah, look at my contacts.
But it is interesting, right? Like how much, we, especially in this industry, you just kind of go through and you're doing things and trying things. And a lot of people, accidentally end up with businesses, was what I found. Most people are like starting out, I'm going to do a band thing. I want to be in the guitar world. And I'm going to, I'll make a pedal for my buddy. Oh, now I'm making 20 pedals for my buddy.
Yep.
Amps are the same way. And then all of a sudden it's like, I own a manufacturing company. Actually.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
Yeah, well, that wasn't the plan.
Doug Sewell,
yeah. There you go.
Great guy, really smart. There was also the angle of cabinets. So we started out with one guy in our cabinet shop, and we kept getting calls from folks saying, "Gosh, I want to buy 5 at a time or 10 at a time," and we were still making 1 at a time. And so we partnered up with another furniture builder who was building, high-end catalog furniture, but doing large runs of stuff. And so we started building, 25 or 50 Tweed Deluxes at a time, and it could really get the cost down for those, and then attracted attention from other amp companies out there. So we started doing just cabinet manufacturing for, at one time it was over 100 different amp companies.
Wow.
That we would just build the shells for, 5 at a time up to 100 at a time. And then on top of doing the Gibson amps, and some of the Trace Elliott stuff. Yeah, and that's continued to be a big part of our business, is just OEM manufacturing for other amp companies, be it just the cabinet or the entire amp.
Well, similarly, like to what I was talking about, a lot of people find themselves in that position where they are staring down the barrel of, I have to start a manufacturing company because my brand has started to do pretty well and I have all this demand. I don't know how to do it, or I really don't want to do it. And you guys have a solution for that for amps, which is pretty incredible. That's amazing. And and I think a lot of people will hear that and they get a little bit confused, as to like, oh, this one was made in California and this one was made in North Carolina, as if that makes some sort of difference, right? It's just we've become very region specific with our manufacturing preferences as guitar players, and sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. Oh yeah, sure.
But it is a thing.
For a while we owned there was another cabinet company in California called Lopo Line that we acquired. Gosh, it was probably back in 2012, 2013. And so we did a ton of manufacturing out there. We eventually rolled all those guys back into our North Carolina operation. We quickly learned that it is no fun owning a business in California.
Oh, you don't say.
Way different than North Carolina.
Yeah. There's a lot more red tape for sure. And I don't
know if you know this, but the guitar cabinets cause cancer in the state of California.
That's right. I walked into the hotel at NAMM, and I noticed that the hotel did as well.
Oh, yeah.
It said it right there on the sign. I was like, wow, I got to get out of here.
If you eat your amp cabinet, you will get cancer.
That's right.
Yeah, no, when I first noticed a sign in the Starbucks that said burnt coffee is known to cause cancer in the state of California, I was like, okay.
Too far.
This is going
Only cold brew when you're in California. You can't have anything else. No, I get it.
Hey, Rocky.
What's up, Vincent?
Did you hear about the latest?
Latest what?
The latest drop from Maris. It's totally insane.
No, tell me more.
Maris just released Enzo X.
What's that?
Enzo X is a supernova expansion from the original Enzo into the highest quality and most flexible studio synthesizer ever created in a pedal format.
Whoa!
Enzo X combines 5 synth types, 5 drives, 3 reverbs, and 5 modulations. It also includes a full 2.5 second stereo delay, all in one pedal.
That sounds hard to use.
It's not. The UI is from the same family as the Mercury X and the LVX. It's super easy to dive in and see exactly what you are tweaking in real time.
Oh, I see. It's right there on the screen.
Yep.
Is it just for guitars, though?
Nope. You can plug almost anything into the Enzo X, including your MIDI controller.
That sounds incredible. Where do I get it?
You can pick up Enzo X online at maris.us or at any of their fine retailers across the globe.
Did you just say across the globe?
They know what I meant.
Wait, are we getting paid for this?
I'm still waiting on that cash money from last time.
He better at least give us pizza for dinner.
I'm not giving him his Enzo X back until he does.
For more information, make sure you check out maris.us, and apparently I have to go order a pizza. How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. No, it's funny because this is a little bit of an aside, but I'm a partner in Stringjoy. I don't know if you guys knew that, but one rumor that's about us that is hilarious to me is there's like this, internet conspiracy theory, and it started to die down finally, but there for a few years it was, they don't actually make things in Nashville. They make them in California. It was like, yes, famously, it's way cheaper to do it in California. So that's why we tell everybody we do it in Nashville. That makes a lot of sense. Sure. It was a bizarre theory, but anyway, semi-related. Yeah. So were the kits, do you feel like the kits were like an inflection point? I feel like in business, there's, there's kind of the slow and steady things and you just keep doing your job. But at some point, in various points, if you stay around long enough, there's inflection points where it's like, ooh, that was a big one. Feels like turning on the 1-800 number was one of those, right? It was like, oh, that was a big one. Were the kits another?
I wish I could say we were smart enough that we went all in all at once on amp kits, but we really kind of tiptoed in, and like Andy said, we would do it on request for people that wanted to build a super reverb and get all the stuff together. And then finally, we would send out the Fender wiring diagram, from the 60s, and the Fender schematic. That was,
and it was a long haul to get everything in order. I mean, you don't get 20 amp kits 100% dialed in even a year. Mm-hmm. Like it just took a long time for them to really grow into what they are now.
And, getting the inventory right? So, I mean, if you've got a super reverb with 140 different parts in it, if you're out of one of those things, then you can't ship the kit. Mm-hmm. So getting that organized, and that's taken forever. But it continues to be a struggle.
If you want to talk inflection points, I mean, I think probably the thing that happened around a similar time was we took it up a notch for at least a moment on vacuum tubes. We did two different things. One of them was a huge new old stock purchase of Jan 6L6s and 12X7s that we did with Tube Store in Canada. But the other big one was we were buying Svetlana tubes when Svetlana wasn't available anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting story. I don't know. How old are you, Blake?
I'm 37.
Okay. So maybe you remember, this was back in 2003 or 4. There was a joint stock company called Svetlana Electron Devices out of Huntsville, Alabama, and they were the distributors for Svetlana for a while. And then they had a falling out with the factory, and so the factory stopped shipping to them. We had a Russian friend, a guy named Peter Belov, who's been in the music industry for a long time, as an amp builder, guitar player. He had a connection. He's from Russia, but had a connection through kind of the back door of the factory. There was a company called Nine that was set up to distribute vacuum tubes within Russia.
Okay.
And so we got the phone number of Sergei Igorov.
And glad he remembers who it was.
Connected with him and started buying tubes directly from the factory.
And we were the only source for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, at one point we bought 60,000 6L6s.
Wow.
Directly from the factory. And it was great. We were the only ones selling 6L6s.
And then all of a sudden, Mike Matthews, who now owns the Svetlana trademark, and he was attempting to get it at that time. And
he eventually got shut down. Svetlana was a giant company, and they made TVs and sinks and all kinds of different stuff on top of vacuum tubes. But the factory ended up shutting down. Meanwhile, Mike Matthews bought the trademark for Svetlana in the U.S., and so he now makes Svetlana tubes at his factory, the Reflector factory. Outside of St. Petersburg.
Yeah, it just turned into a little bit of a fight amongst other people for a while about who was going to actually sell Svetlana tubes. And so we just backed out of it and said, all right, you guys go at it. And it actually ended up with two different companies. It ended up with Mike Matthews with the trademark.
And PM Components was in there.
PM Components with another trademark. One of them was Svetlana and the other was Svetlana USA or something. Whatever. More tubes the merrier. That's great. But so we spent 2 years doing way more tube business than we were intending to. So it was another inflection point, like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But crazy business for an item with such a low margin.
Right. Yeah.
So we decided to kind of focus on other things after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tubes
and go ahead.
No, go.
Well, I was just going to say, so you guys have been, this might be maybe a topic for a little later in the conversation, but you guys, regardless of if you're, in the tube business, you are in the tube amp business very solidly. As modeling has come along and become very popular, Has that impacted you guys at all, or is it just niche-y enough that the people who want it are always going to want it?
Yeah, I think it is niche-y enough. I mean, I remember, sometime right after we started, the Line 6 pod came out, the first one that looked like the kidney bean. And back then, everybody was like, oh my God, vacuum tubes are dead. This is the best thing ever. Listen to the way this sounds. It's awesome. And it seems like every 4 or 5 years, a new product comes along, and it definitely gets closer.
Well, I mean, I really think that what's happened at this point is the digital technology has gotten really freaking good. Mm-hmm. But we also passed over the point already that albums went through where they were worth nothing, and then they became worth something again. And I think tube stuff has already passed over this is a commodity that's not necessary to this is just what some people want. Mm-hmm. In addition to the modeling, it's not necessary. It's just a different audience of people buying the goods.
Yeah. I do both. That's the thing. It's like I was a tube amp guy solidly. I don't know why I would touch anything else for many, many years. And I finally started messing with it, and I'm like, oh, I see now. Like, I mean, I remember when I was first starting on this tone chasing quest where I really started understanding some of this stuff a little bit. My boss found out that I was into it, and he's like, oh, you got to try my Goldtop Les Paul. And I was on light duty for an injury and stuff, so he was being extra nice to me, I think. And he's like, and you take it home for a weekend and try this little kidney bean thing. It's amazing. It has every sound in it. And I had already started kind of down the tube amp journey at that point. And I was like, oh, I'll try this thing. And I was just like, ugh, I don't know what you're talking about. This ain't any better. My crate's better than this. I don't know what but as it's evolved and it's gotten really, really good, I find myself still, and I'm in this mode right now where I'm like, yeah, but if I plug in a stereo, delay and separate my amps out in the room and play 2 tube amps cranked to the max, or even, to 11, some might say, it's not the same thing. It's really a special feeling. And I think once you've had that feeling, you can't go back.
Yeah, I agree. The convenience of solid state stuff is awesome. But yeah, it's not there yet.
But the good news is you don't have to choose.
You don't.
Yeah.
Do both.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would argue there's a place for both of them.
I do too.
I totally understand a touring musician who doesn't want to have to carry stuff all over the place. And I totally understand John Mayer, who's like, so I'm going to take every piece of gear because I can.
Because I can. Yeah. Yeah. And the people like me, I'm just going to hoard all of it in my little hole, and I don't have to take it anywhere. So whatever. But I totally use a hybrid setup. I use the Boss tube amp expander all the time. And it's a have your cake and eat it too situation. You get your mic'd cab sounds. I run the direct sounds out to my interface and play with IRs later to, do mixes and stuff. And it's like, what? You can do both. Why not do both? Let's do it all.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing anything, then you're probably doing it right, because plenty of people have all sorts of gear and don't do a thing. So.
That's right.
Yeah, this is true. They're collectors. That's okay too. That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
So fast forward a little bit, looking at the modern Mojotone, how do you guys describe yourselves to, say, somebody who's not really that familiar with the music industry? I run into this all the time. Met a bunch of new dads in the neighborhood the other day, and so what do you do, Blake? I'm like, well.
I mean, what I honestly say is we're a company that provides parts to people who build guitars and guitar amps, and we'll also put it all together for you if you need that done. But I don't know what a better way to say that is. Maybe Michael.
Yeah, I don't know. My pitch is always we sell parts for guitars and guitar amplifiers, anything that goes in or on a guitar or in or on a guitar amplifier. And then we also do contract manufacturing for other amp companies.
Yeah.
So real concise.
That's right.
Yeah, it's always, why is it such a mouthful? Yeah, it's always a mouthful.
A huge inflection point that we stepped over was the fact that we, at some point in time, we didn't do any guitar pickup or guitar pickup parts, or really any parts for guitars at all. We might have sold strings fairly early on, but for the most part, guitar parts weren't a thing for us. And then we stepped into pickups, and it was at a moment where people who had been supplying magnets and things of that sort of evaporated. So we became the supplier to a lot of other people who were building pickups at the same time as we started to build pickups.
But we were doing parts first. We just saw a hole in the industry for pickup parts. Mm-hmm. So we started with that. And then we felt like we might step on the toes of some of our customers if we started building pickups. So we kind of had a undercover brand called Custom Wound Pickups. And so we did that for a couple of years and built pickups under this other brand. And then decided that was...
And we're like, haha, fooled everyone.
No one will ever find out about this.
By the way, you can only buy custom wound stuff at Mojotone.
Right.
That's right. We did that with, we had another company called Port City Amps that we did. We figured it would upset too many people if we came out with a Mojotone amp. So we devised this scheme of like, all right, well, we'll build it under another brand.
With a friend of ours, Daniel Klein.
Yeah, so it was the three of us, and Dan was kind of the face of it. Dan eventually bought the whole company and took it on. But
I was gonna say you tricked me with that one because I knew about the Pearl, right?
Yeah.
That was years ago. I remember hearing about that one. Had no idea you guys were involved in it, so it kind of worked.
Oh, yeah. No one knew.
That's great. That's crazy. The guitar parts and stuff I want to talk about a little bit too, because it's such a weird thing to talk about. Like, we're making guitar electronic components. It's passive for the most part. It's there's a lot of for lack of no pun intended here, but there's a lot of like mojo around it. Like, this capacitor sounds so much better than that capacitor, and it's
right.
like, guys, I understand what you're saying, and in some contexts that is true, but we are talking about passive guitar electronics here. This is a different thing.
Coming from having been a technician who was forced to use groove tubes at one point in time, I was always heavily resistant towards any sort of double speak about components. And so I think we adopted as a brand, never claim, like, even though our name is Mojotone, never claiming that the, like, we sell our own brand of capacitors, but we don't say, there is some sort of secret magic inside of this capacitor. Like, it has these characteristics that are similar to these other sorts of vintage components, but we were never saying, this, you've got to use this capacitor to get the best tone. Like, we're leaving that up to our customers to decide. And if they want to tell somebody else that, then that's great. But you're never going to get that coming from us, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could be a different story with something completed like a pickup. We might say that our recipe sounds better, but for an individual component, I don't think you'll find us saying that. So
maybe speakers.
Well, but speakers are kind of a special recipe as well. And earlier you were talking about when something comes from California or Tennessee, and whether that could have an effect on it. It actually can with speaker paper, for instance.
Sure.
Because even the water that's used to make the paper can contribute to whatever. There is some weird magic that goes on with speakers. So.
Yeah, I think anything that there's a lot of cheeseburgers out there, right? And everybody's got their favorite one, but the base recipe is kind of the same thing. But it's also, when you bite into it, it's undeniable. Like, no, but that one's better than that one. Like, right. Sure, it's all meat, cheese, bread, but there's a lot of different ways to make meat, cheese, bread, and a lot of nuances that go into that stuff.
Sure.
And I think it's that way with like most, especially vintage-inspired guitar gear. Because I've played, original black panel Fenders and things that are great, and I've played some that I'm like, this probably needs serviced. It doesn't sound very good. It doesn't have the mojo.
Sure.
But it's just, as guitarists, and I, even though I know these things to be true, I still can't help it. Sometimes you plug into something and you're like, no, that's better, and I don't know why, but it's better.
Right.
And it's hard to quantify. But no, I think you guys have done a good job with presenting that stuff. And going back to the pickups a little bit, when you guys started kind of doing that secretly and then coming out with the full stuff, did you start with just, the classic PAF, Strat pickups and things like that? Because eventually you evolved to where you're doing your own novel, actually new stuff. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so we started out with the parts, and then we started doing rewinds. So people would send in their pickups to us, and so by doing that, we had hundreds of samples of all kinds of vintage pickups that we really got to inspect and look at and figure out materials and difference in materials. And so it really started with that. And we had a guy. We've had people in the past that understand the physics of a pickup and why it works and how it works. But if you don't have an ear, if you're not a player, because a lot of the aspects of a pickup are really only noticeable and obvious to the player, right? So dynamics and things like that. But we had a guy who had a great ear, and we've got pretty much everybody that works here is a player. So it certainly helps having those people around that have good ears that can tell, like, oh God, it needs a little something, or it's lacking a little bit something. But yeah, first we started out with just the vintage designs and kind of honed that in.
And then some beefier versions, and then I think the first departure was the convertibles, right?
Right, with the push switch,
which were great, but they were a little bit too hard to build and keep consistent, and so we discontinued them. But they may be coming back. That's in the near future. Some ways
foreshadowing.
That happen.
A big one for us for pickups was the Quiet Coil series.
Yeah.
A lot of the products we make, we start with the problem first and there were hum canceling single coil sized pickups out there, but they all seemed to lack something. That it might have been a good pickup, but it didn't sound like a Strat pickup. And that was kind of the problem that we went out to solve. It's like, why can't we make this sound like a Strat? And one of the things that a lot of folks have done over the years is take two coils but stack it on top of each other. And if you're familiar with the magnetic field of just a single coil pickup and how the field kind of wraps around the pickup, when you stack two on top of each other, that field is the same. Now it's just they're parallel to each other, and that does something to the high end and the bass side of the pickup. That just doesn't sound like a single coil anymore. And so we decided we would try to fit two coils side by side in the space of a single coil pickup.
But solve the problems of what happens when you do that. And
yeah, that wasn't easy either. Figuring out the right wire, right magnet.
And then a year later, I think we did.
Or longer.
Yeah.
The magnetic field of a pickup was a shocking revelation to me. I had a fellow here named Ken. He had a company called Roadhouse Pickups here in Portland for a while, and he would do like Supro style things. And he ended up hitting me up out of the blue one day and was like, do you know anybody that would want to learn about pickups and get into pickups? And I was like, maybe me. And I quickly learned that I didn't want to manufacture pickups, and sent that all to my buddy Sean at Gun Street. But like, it was fascinating when he would show me like some of the designs. He's like, well, this pickup is technically the same as the other pickup that we just made, but we moved the magnets here. And I was like, what? And I've played these two separate pickups before, and I would have had no idea they basically had the same components and output, but they sounded so much different just because the magnetic field's in a different place, which is like wild. I don't think a lot of people fully understand how much the location, not even the size or the shape, the location of the magnetic field where your string interacts with it on a pickup is such a big deal. It's crazy to me. Like, you guys know this well, but to me, it was a wild revelation. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Well, so getting those right was a huge deal. And then the other really big one after that, and this took more than, I think it took more than 3 years. We attacked this soundhole acoustic pickup thing. Mm-hmm. Just going, there's no reason that a soundhole acoustic pickup has to sound like garbage. And it was clear from the beginning that we could get it. But every time we did an iteration, we were like, it still has to be better than this. I know that sounds a little bit like, what anyone would say about their development process, but it really was, it was just over and over and over. It wasn't quite good enough for over 3 years. But in the end, what we ended up with, it still leaves me wondering, like, why do the other soundhole pickups sound so friggin' bad?
Yeah, that was a weird thing that, forever growing up a guitar player, everybody just dealt with it. Like if you had to buy a soundhole pickup, it's going to suck. It's not going to sound great. That the B string is going to be higher, volume than anything else. And you just deal with it and nobody says anything.
A big part of it was getting a notch at around, humorously enough, 420 that knocks it down right there before you're amplifying anything. Well, Basically everyone else is just allowing that horrible notch up to escape. And then you're supposed to take care of that in your amp and preamp. And it's like, it's not good for anything. There's nothing you can do with it if you leave it in there. You need to notch it out early. So I don't understand why that's not attacked by other companies. Mm-hmm. So there's your cue, other soundhole pickup companies. Knock your friggin' frequency response down around 420 before it gets out of your pickup.
So that's a hot one. When that came from a magnetic field conversation, though, are you noticing like the positioning of your magnets in your soundhole pickup is different than what other people are doing, or is that true?
Well,
too?
There were definitely some things that occurred in the coils, and then so I guess my take on it is I wasn't the person designing the coil side of it, so my take on it was more from the electronic side. So even after you had attacked it with everything you could from the coil design, you're still left with this peaky low mid that you have to get rid of before you can do anything with it. And now that I have gone through that experience and know that, if I was recording anyone and I was at a sound console, the first thing I would do would be to knock that low mid down. Mm-hmm. like before I even like listened to what else was going on, I would be knocking the low mid down, because I can guarantee you it's going to be a problem with your acoustic guitar recording.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if it's using a different pickup, right?
But that is a good one. I love sending that pickup out to people, and we've had a lot of successes with it. In fact, Trey from Fish bought 12 of them for his last acoustic tour that he did earlier this spring. But it's so much fun sending out, those things to artists. Say, like, I know your thoughts on, probably your thoughts on soundhole pickups, but trust me, just try this. Just put it in and see what you think. But, Trey, Zach Brown, it's pretty fun to have people call back and say, man, you were right. This does sound awesome.
I had given up on soundhole pickups so thoroughly that I bought a Gibson J160E that basically has a P90 in it, and was like, that's fine. Oh, yeah. But at least I like P90 sounds.
There you go.
Which is an interesting choice for an acoustic guitar, I will say, Gibson. You had humbuckers at the time that might have been a little bit better choice for that. I guess it didn't really fit. P90 is fun, though. So when you guys started manufacturing amps for yourselves under your actual own name, did you receive the pushback you expected, or was it kind of fine?
A little bit. So the amp thing came about. We had we were building amps for another OEM, and the problem with doing contract manufacturing is you have no say in how that company runs their business and does the things that they do. So, they could be a great customer, your number one customer today, and then tomorrow they do something dumb and they go out of business. So we had a pretty big OEM that we were building amps for, that for whatever reason decided not to do amps anymore. And so we had all these manufacturing folks still here, and so we didn't want to lay anybody off. And so we just decided, we've got some pretty good amp designs here. Let's just make our own Mojotone branded stuff. And so that's kind of how that came about.
And how was the response from the customers, knowing like your history and everything? And it to me, it makes a ton of sense. But what did the customers think about it?
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, there were some grumblings.
We had a really good release for the Blackout, though. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest.
Yeah, we did a kind of a knockoff of the a Tweed Deluxe, where we had kind of a modern high gain channel and then the vintage channel.
In a black tweed.
Yeah, but again, to answer your question, so we try really hard with our customer service, and we try to provide anything and everything we can to our customers. So even though they might not have been super happy that we were competing with them necessarily, we still went above and beyond supplying their stuff and making sure it was exactly what they wanted.
So we're getting close to the end of the podcast. I got one more question that I want to hit you with, but then I have two classic questions that I ask everybody.
All right.
The one I want to get into, because with you guys specifically, and a lot of people in this industry listen to this show because I talk to people like you who've been around for a long time. So if somebody was trying to get started in MI, what advice would you have for them after being in it this long, this successfully?
HVAC is a really good. I've actually said that to many people. If you're dead set on going into MI, you need to. I think you need to just make sure that you love it enough to deal with whatever you have to deal with, because it's not going to be a home run that it's going to be easy.
But I do think if you're passionate about something like most guitar players are, and you are providing something to the customer. I know a lot of guitar guys and even amp builders who are so stuck in their ways of, no, this is the best way to do this. This way sounds the best, and don't necessarily listen to what the customers want. That's not a good recipe for success. But as long as you're passionate about it and you love what you're doing, and you are actually providing something to a customer, you're going to be successful.
You're probably also going to want to avoid traditional business practices, because I don't think that that's going to get you anywhere.
Like what?
Like take this product and scale it.
Yeah.
Just that kind of thinking is not going to get you because there's a million guys who do it as a hobby that are business guys and are already like looking at every scaling possibility there is. You need to have something that you're really doing, not just I'm going to do this standard business thing and make a bunch of money.
Yeah, that's true. We've seen a lot of private equity groups kind of get into our space, and this is it's a passion business, and you cannot operate a passion business on a spreadsheet. It's more than just numbers. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And I would echo that too. I think you need to want to do it. And what I've said to, with many of the business owners I've interviewed, it's like, you need to want it because I don't see very many, and by very many, I mean none, Bentleys driving around at NAMM. It's not a thing unless maybe it's a big artist coming in on their own dime. But
right.
That's not something I've ever seen. You got to want to do it. And I think if you really want it, then go for it. But if you don't, I think it's fine to have it as a hobby. It should be a hobby. If you don't want to press all the way into it, there's nothing wrong with a side business that makes you happy. That's fine. You don't have to jump in with both feet the way we decided to for some reason.
Yeah.
That's not to say it isn't awesome. It's awesome when you get in. It's just a different kind of awesome than what most people are used to. All right, before I give you guys the classic questions, I do like to give the guests a chance to take the floor. Talking to a few thousand people right now, you can shout out anybody you want to shout out. You can say hi to your aunt. You can plug anything you want to plug. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks. Well, I would say thank you to all of our customers for the last 25 years. Again, we really pride ourselves on customer service, and we think we're doing a good job. We hope we're doing a good job, but yeah, thanks to all the Mojotone customers for the last 25 years that have made it possible for Andy and I to do this for as long as we have.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I could thank, but probably the one that I need to go on record as thanking the most is Michael for keeping things running all the time. So
thanks.
Don't downplay it. I could just as easily have thrown him under the bus about something. So, and that's generally what happens.
Yes. Well, it's more fun that way. Keeps him on his toes. Right?
That's right.
All right, here we go. Classic questions. First one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of tough. There's a lot.
I mean, I've definitely I probably spent more time having fun twisting knobs on a Boss delay than anything else. I don't think that everything else is a one hit wonder, but I could get sucked into a sort of a wonderland of playing with a delay for a while. I don't know exactly what model, but it was the standard Boss delay when I was growing up, whatever that was.
Yeah, mine was the chorus pedal, the CE2, I guess.
CE2, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Blue one. I was a big Rush fan growing up, and so I always had that thing on.
Yeah.
Boss.
Andy, do you remember what color that Boss pedal was? I might be able to narrow this down.
Well, I don't know. I seem to remember a light whitish color with clicks on the upper right.
Probably a DD2 or DD3, most likely.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. Those things, ubiquitous, but man, they got something. I still think they're kind of underrated. I love a DD2, DD3. They're so great. Even the modern ones, I think they sound great. Like,
I would get another one and screw around with hooking an LFO up to the rate knob or whatever.
Yeah, I like where your head's at. All right. Final question of the main podcast here. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Like brand of pizza or toppings on a pizza?
We can get as nerdy as you want to get about it. I can go deep. Or I can go shallow. Either way.
favorite pizza I ever had came from the freaking square at what's the canal town in Italy?
Venice.
In Venice. It was like on St. Mark's Square. And so I don't think and it was totally about the dough. It had this like, I think that I discovered that they had blown the dough a couple of times. And so it had this like yeasty thing, but it was also crisp. It was something that I'd never had like exactly like that again. And, in general, just the margarita pizza is freaking fine.
Yeah, I was going to say margarita. It's just simple perfection.
Yeah, if you can do that right, you don't need much else.
Right.
I do understand. I like a lot of pizzas, but once in a while, I got to go simple and just call it a day. Yeah, I like it. Do you have a favorite pizzeria in town you want to shout out?
Oh, yeah, we've got a Big Daddy's Pizza here in Burgaw.
All right, Big Daddy's Pizza, shout out.
Yeah.
Right. I know what to look for when I get out there.
Come on, man. Come visit.
All right, man. Well, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate you. And we'll slide over to Patreon and see what kind of silliness we can get into over there if that works for you.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. All right, everybody. For Andy and Michael, this is Blake. And as always, good people, good luck, and good tones. Alrighty, folks, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. That was a nice little history lesson there. I really, really appreciated talking to those fellas. And guess what? Over on Patreon, we got really weird with it. Oh yeah, we went back to extraterrestrial territory. We explored that amongst a bunch of other things, actually. So if you'd like to support the podcast and get that extra spicy bonus content and get access to the ad-free episodes, please head over there. And for $5 a month, you can get that beamed directly to your ears every single week. Thank you to everybody who's done that. And please, if this was interesting to you, share it with a friend. Tell somebody about it. That is what helps keep this thing going, and it's free. Plus, you'd have my eternal gratitude. And if that wasn't enough, if you need more of my blabbering on the internet, and you want it to be maybe a little more informative than normal, check out Tape Spaghetti, the podcast that Scott, my business partner, Scott Marquardt, the main string joy guy, you know who he is at this point, surely. We've been recording a podcast called Tape Spaghetti, and it is a lot of fun. It's not like this. On that show, we dive into one weird musical topic, and we go from there. Last week, I explored the history of the Shags, and if you don't know who the Shags are, just imagine you're a dude in the 60s, and your mom predicted that you were going to have a famous rock band in your family, and you decide to take that ball and roll with it. And by roll with it, I mean pull your daughters out of school and force them to play for hours and hours, and the output is, interesting. So yeah, if you like weird musical stories, check out Tape Spaghetti wherever you are hearing this one. It would mean a lot to me if you could do that. And as long as this show has more listeners than Tape Spaghetti, I'm going to know that not all of you have done it yet. And so far, this show has a lot more listeners than Tape Spaghetti. So please go check that out wherever you get your podcasts. All right, folks, that's enough blabbering. I will talk to you on the internet very soon. I piled up a bunch of good content this week, so lots of fun stuff rolling your way. All right, folks, talk to you on the internet very soon. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately, and if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gunstreet as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gunstreet harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.